What is up, YouTube? Dirty Dave here, Dirty Dave Television. Today I want to show you how to convert your S model or E model DRZ400 to Supermoto with some nice fresh new Supermoto wheels. I just picked these up a couple weeks ago. Now you'll find these anywhere from, I got these for $500. They're in decent shape, but you'll find them anywhere from $500 to $1,000 depending on the deal that you get. I got them with tires and with no rotors or sprockets. But I'm going to be basically swapping everything over, which you're going to be doing the same thing as well. So what I wanted to show you first was just the tools that I'm going to be using. Okay, I have a Phillips head screwdriver. From the stock Suzuki toolkit, we have the 24 millimeter wrench with the extension, a pair of pliers to remove the cotter pin from the rear axle, an impact driver. This is important because when you take your rear rotor bolts and front rotor bolts out, they most likely have some sort of Loctite on them, and they're probably seized up. So using this impact wrench is going to be key in order not to strip them. And then you're going to be using a 5.5 millimeter or 6 millimeter, depending on the rotor bolts that you have, Allen wrench, 12 millimeter box wrench, 12 millimeter socket, and I like to use a rubber mallet just to loosen things up a bit and not wreck anything. Okay, so that's what we're going to start with. We have our Supermoto wheels. I'm going to start on the front. Let me get the rear one out of the way. Then I'm going to do this step by step so you guys can see it as we do it. I'll edit some of this just to make sure that, the video is not too long, but I'm going to show you step by step on everything that we're going to do. So first things first, we're going to loosen the front axle. Okay, so I got my 24 millimeter axle nuts on the other side. Righty tighty, lefty loosey. I usually give it a good shot with the rubber mallet and loosen this baby up. Put that aside. Next thing we're going to need is our 12 millimeter socket. Loosen the pinch bolts. Whoops, wrong way. Righty tighty, lefty loosey. Okay, you don't have to take them all the way out, just loosen them up. Notice we have our speedo drive here as well. You're going to have to swap out speedo drives from the S to the SM because it's a different ratio. The smaller front wheel is going to require a different speedo drive. So now we have our pinch bolts loosened. I'm going to take my handy rubber mallet and give it a little tap. Okay. We'll pop out the axle. Slide the wheel out. Remove the speedo drive. We'll swap that out in a moment. And our wheel is out. You'll notice there's a spacer here. Mine is red. Yours is probably silver. We can pull that out. We're going to swap that to the Supermoto wheel. And what I like to do, I'm going to have to swap rotors out now. I'm going to grab a bucket. Okay, I lay my wheel on the bucket. I'm going to grab my impact wrench and my Allen key. Okay, I got my impact wrench with my Allen key, my trusty rubber mallet. I'm going to go one at a time. Loose. Loose. Okay, we'll spin these out one at a time. Okay, all of our rotor bolts have been removed. Lift up the rotor. This wheel is ready for storage. Okay, we'll grab the Supermoto wheel, throw it on the bucket, affix the rotor. Okay, have our rotor bolts and holes all lined up. It's kind of hard to screw this up. It fits literally right into a slot. Okay, I'm going to hand tighten them first to make sure that I don't cross thread anything. Now you might want to add Loctite, blue Loctite to these. I don't, because I swap out wheels pretty often. But for safety, you may want to add blue Loctite. You don't want the red. If you put the red on, you'll never get them out. All right, and then we basically tighten them all up. Going across pattern. So I'm crisscrossing each as I go. So I do one, I move to the one directly across. Okay, so I'm just getting them snug, and then I'll run through and then snug them up. Now there's a torque spec. I don't have a torque wrench, so I'm going by feel. Okay. Good. Good. Be careful with these because they're very soft. They're very easy to round out the heads. Good. Okay, we're all good. All right, we have our wheel. It's all ready to go, and we're going to put it on the bike. Okay, so before I put the wheel on the bike, what I want to do is swap out the speedo drive, which is this item right here. Let me grab my screwdriver. I have my SM speedo drive, and all we're going to be doing is simply unscrewing this Phillips head. And you have to basically bring it out all the way or else it won't come out. It's basically locked in from this Phillips head screw. Okay, once you get it out pretty far, give it a yank. Put that to the side. We'll put our new speedo drive on. Slide it in. Okay. And then we'll screw this back in. Okay. Locked in nice and tight. Okay. So now we have our speedo drive ready to go. We have our spacer. We're going to put that into the wheel. And now we're all positioned and ready to go. Now what you're going to have to do is make sure that the disc brake goes into the two pads. Make sure it's between the pads as opposed to having anything shift. So make sure your disc brake is between the two pads. And what I like to do is sit down, use my feet as a support, lift up the wheel, okay, and position it in a place I can lift it up and down with my toes. Okay, so before I put everything in, I'm going to put my speedo drive in. That's on. My spacer fell out. Whoop, stay tuned. Okay, round two. Feet under. Speedo drive fixed. Lift up. Align everything in properly. Make sure that the disc is going inside the pads. We're lined up pretty well here. Let me grab the axle. We slide that back through. Okay. We're good there. Grab my rubber mallet. Tap that back in. Make sure everything spins freely. Okay, now your axle should be flush with the end of the bottom of the fork. Okay, so now that we're flush with the fork bottom, okay, what I like to do is I like to tighten my pinch bolts on the side of the speedo drive first. Okay, so we're going to tighten them down. Once again, I don't know torque specs on this. I just do it by feel. Okay, now on the other side, I grab my axle nut, put the washer on first before I tighten these pinch bolts. Okay, thread the nut. Okay, I grab my 24 millimeter, And I tighten this just enough so everything comes together. So it's just tight. Not too tight. You don't want to over tighten it. But so it's just about tight. This way everything will line up properly. Okay, so I got some resistance there. My wheel spins freely. Okay, now I'm going to tighten up those pinch bolts. Okay, we're going to tighten up each pinch bolt on the left side, or the left side of the bike. The right side from what we're looking at. Okay, we'll torque these down. Front is done. Just make sure you double check everything. We should be good to go. On to the rear. Okay, now at the rear of the bike, we're going to need 3 tools. We're going to need our pliers. We're going to need our wrench. And we're going to need our rubber mallet. So the first thing we need to do is remove this cotter pin that locks this castle nut in place. Okay, so we're going to get underneath. We'll use our wrench. Needle nose will help with this as well. I'm going to pull this cotter pin out. Make sure it's nice and flat so it comes out smooth. Give it a little tap. Okay, then we're going to take our same 24 millimeter wrench, put it on, give it a little tap. Okay, and we will remove the castle nut, the washer, and then the spacer. Now keep in mind that the ridges, you'll see one side is ridged, one side is flat. The flat side goes towards the outside, the ridge goes towards the inside. I'll put this on the side. Okay, I got my rubber mallet. Give it a smack, maybe 2. Other side pops out. We slide the axle out. Now what will happen is the wheel will basically slide out of the brake. What you want to do first, push forward, loosen up the chain, just lay that to the side, everything will pull out. Okay. And then pull out your brake from the slot on the swing arm. Okay. You see that? This slot goes in this groove right here. We'll push that to the side. We'll take our wheel, remove our left spacer, remove our right spacer, put those aside. And then what we need to do is remove the disc as well as the sprocket to transfer over to the Supermoto wheel. Okay, so off to the bucket. Let's do the rotor first. Okay, we're going to need our impact driver with the Allen key and the rubber mallet. And same as the front wheel. Okay, all of our rotor bolts are out. Pull the rotor off, put it aside. Okay, now we need to work on our sprocket. Okay, we need a 12 millimeter box wrench for that and a 6 millimeter Allen key. Okay, so on the rear wheel, we have our Allen key, which is 6 millimeters. This fits in perfectly. Okay, and on the back, we have these 12 millimeter bolts. Okay, I found that the easiest way to get these off was to get a curved box wrench, go one at a time, put it on the bolt, grab a rubber mallet, just hold on to it, and loosen each one. Okay, now that each one is loose, you can take your box wrench and you could just spin them right off. It's the best way that I found to do it without stripping the bolts, stripping the Allen heads, and it makes things nice and easy. Okay, so we'll do all 6 of these. Our sprocket should pull right off. Put that aside. We're done with this wheel. We're going to move on to the Supermoto wheel now. Okay, I have my rotor, my rear Supermoto wheel. I'm going to slide it onto the hub, align the bolt holes. Okay, I'm going to hand thread each rotor bolt in to avoid stripping once again. You might want to wear gloves. Your hands get a little dirty and greasy from doing this. As you can see, you might want to wear some gloves, mechanics gloves. Your hands get a little greasy from doing this. Okay, so once they're all hand threaded, we're going to use our ratchet and go in a crisscross pattern, tighten them down, get them snug. Okay, let's give them a final tighten now. Not too tight. Once again, you can use blue Loctite. Okay, rear rotor's on. Let's move on to the sprocket. Okay, I have my rear sprocket. I'm going to slide that onto the hub, align the holes, and put each one of these bolts with the Allen head into their respective hole. Now we're just going to reverse the process and put our lock nuts on the back of each Allen head. We'll hand tighten them on first. Okay, now we'll grab our box wrench using the rounded side and the Allen key and snug each one up. Good. Going crossways again. Okay, once they're all hand snug, I like to take my box wrench, rounded side, my rubber mallet, and just go give each one a quick tap. Get them nice and tight. Go right in the cross again. Okay, just give them a quick check. Nice and tight. Nice and tight. Nice and tight. Nice and tight. Yep. That was a little bit loose. Okay, nice and tight. And nice and tight. Okay, we're all set to install the wheel on the bike. Okay, here we are at the back of the bike. We have our brake caliper. We have our chain to the left. We're basically just going to slide this in. We're going to use our feet to lift up. Okay, and balance the wheel. And then what we're going to want to do, put our spacers in each side. Okay, so we have our wheel centered. We're going to grab our brake caliper. We're going to slide that over the rotor. Make sure that the pads go on each side of the rotor. Slide that over top. Okay. Use your feet to lift up. Slide the caliper into the slot on the swing arm. Okay. And just slowly put everything back in place. Okay, so this is lined up. Push the wheel all the way forward. Let's put our chain back on. Okay, that's good. We're going to grab our axle. And once again, I'm using my feet to lift up. Okay, let's put our axle in. Slide it all the way through. Let's give it a quick tap with the mallet. Okay, now that the axle's through, We're going to grab our snail chain adjuster, groove side in, flat side out, slide that on, washer, slide that on, and castle nut, slide that on. Okay, let's grab our 24 millimeter. Let's tighten that up. Now we're not going to go too tight because we still have to adjust our chain. Okay, so on these snail adjusters, make sure that the numbers on both sides are exactly the same. Okay, so now before you tighten it, make sure that everything is the same on both sides. We have 2 and 2 clicks on this side, 2 and 2 clicks on this side. Chain looks good, and we'll tighten everything up. Okay, let's tighten everything up. You don't have to go super tight, but you do have to make sure that the castle nut grooves align with the hole in the axle. Okay, so we can see through there. We'll grab our cotter pin, slide that back in. You could use a new cotter pin as well. I'm just reusing the old one. Okay, take the cotter pin, move one edge towards the inside. The other edge we can curl around the bolt. Keep that nice and tight. I like to take the rubber mallet and curl it over. Okay, rear wheel is done. Okay, so here we have our Supermoto setup for the DRZ400. Not too bad, took about a half hour total. With some practice, might take 20 minutes. Let me roll this outside so you can see what it looks like. So there she is, Supermoto setup, all ready for action. Guys, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Please, if you can, if this was helpful to you, make sure you like, subscribe, and share the video. And if you have any other questions, feel free to leave a comment below. Thanks, guys. Peace.